Itami Yaoji, a hardcore otaku and a reserve member of the Japanese Self-Defense Force, lives by himself in modern-day Japan. One evening, an imbalance in energies occurred, causing a huge rift in space and time. As a result, a massive mysterious gate appears out of nowhere in Tokyo's Ginza district. It serves as a gateway to another world filled with magic, dragons, and medieval civilizations, each with its own hierarchy of leaders and kingdoms. Through the gateway, an army of medieval warriors appears like a tornado and starts hunting humans all over the city. Itami, who was present at a nearby doujinshi event, witnesses the gate's emergence and rushes to offer his assistance as a soldier. He helps people escape the ongoing slaughter and ends up killing one of the warriors to save a police officer. They eventually manage to save hundreds of civilians and form a defense line. Soon after, helicopters start smoking the flying dragons, which is then followed by tanks shooting at the enemy, and after a brief standoff, things quickly shift against the invading otherworldly army, making them fall back to where they came from. A few days have passed since then, and Itami, for his bravery shown during the enemy's invasion, was promoted to first lieutenant. In the following days, the land beyond the gate has been named as the Special Region. To stop any future attacks and learn what lies beyond the gate, the Prime Minister decides to dispatch a special team through. For this task, Itami and his fellow JSDF members were chosen. Their mission is to gather intelligence about the gate and its origin. When they enter the gate, tragedy strikes as Itami and his men are suddenly ambushed by a bunch of ghouls ready to isekai them. Even though they prove to be tough to kill, they quickly overwhelm them and capture one of the strategic points called the Elnews Hills. On the other side, Emperor Molt gets worried about the advancing human army and learns that he has lost 60% of his brave men in a failed attempt to conquer the human world. Since their kingdom doesn't have inexhaustible manpower, and they couldn't find cheap laborers like China, the emperor's advisor fears a possible revolt against him due to recent losses. He suggests to the emperor to resolve his issues with the arriving human army, and that his kingdom could be extended by cooperating with them. However, the emperor, being one ugly and corrupt leader like the human leaders, is certain they can still defend the kingdom by combining their strength. He then sends delegations to the neighboring kingdoms in order to raise a powerful army. His words reach the other warlords and kings, many of whom decide to join Emperor Molt. However, when they all head towards Elnews Hills on a quest to reclaim the lost land, they find no sign of the Imperial army aiding them. Emperor Molt had tricked them and left their men on the battlefield. The earthly army had far more modern weapons, and within minutes, 2 of the warlords and their armies were defeated. This made the remaining warlords lose their morale, and they started to run away from the battlefield. However, Lord Durin refuses to give up and makes a plan to ambush the enemies in the darkness of the night when they were not expecting it. As night fell, Durin, along with his soldiers, sneaked up behind the enemy camps but soon got caught in heavy fire. It ended up being a massacre as his men fell like leaves, and within seconds, Durin lost half of his army. Furiously, he picked up a bow and shot an arrow towards human forces, which turned out to be the worst decision of his life as he ended up getting more holes than a Swiss cheese. What a lame way to die. The next day, as the sun rose in the sky, Itami walked around the battlefield, trying to find any surviving soldiers. However, everywhere he looked, he found corpses of Durin's army. His fellow men told him about killing some 60,000 soldiers the past night, which is far off even from modern war records. So, before more people died, he decided that they should end this battle and negotiate with the neighboring kingdoms. Back in the palace, Emperor Molt received the news of the loss of the following night and the possible death of Lord Durin. It turned out all of this was the Emperor's plan to crush any revolt against him. Just when his allies needed him the most, the evil Emperor ordered to poison their wells and take their livestock. As he was ordering this evil plan, Emperor's daughter Pina walked into the room. She asked about the recent loss and what the Imperial army was doing when the Allied army was getting defeated. The Emperor's advisor told her that everything is fine and she is just overreacting. Meanwhile, the United States and the other countries were not happy with JSDF's performance and began to wonder if they could get their hands on the resources of this new world. However, for the time being, the USA decided not to send its troops and let Japan take the risk for them. On the other side, Itami was assigned to investigate the local religions, politics, and improve diplomatic relations with the locals of the Special Zone. For this task, Itami had been given the command of one of the convoys of 6 deep recon teams. Unable to frantically reject his senior, Itami reluctantly agrees, and along with his team, heads to the nearby town. He manages to make friendly contact with the locals of the Koda village and learns about a nearby settlement in the magical forest. By the time they reach there, Itami spots a fire dragon at a distance burning up the forest and attacking the settlement. All their efforts to find any survivors come up empty-handed, and all they can see are the corpses of the settlers. As they prepare to leave the area, Itami finds a lone survivor of the settlement barely alive in a well. When he sees she's an elf, he gets excited and brings her out. His team gives her first aid, and after some time her vitals stabilize. Afterward, Itami, along with the elf girl, returns to Koda village and asks the village chief about the dragon and why it attacked the settlement. The elderly chief explains that a fire dragon is a fierce creature that once it tastes humans or elves, will keep attacking villages and towns, so they must leave the place while they can. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Koda village, the news of a fire dragon attacking the forest settlement reaches Kato. He is a high-ranking wizard and along with his apprentice Lele, prepares to leave because the dragon might end up killing them. As he tries to develop a plot with her, Lele thinks he's a creep and reminds the old pervert of his place by channeling her wind ability, after which, they load their stuff and head out of there. On their way out, they meet with a blockade due to a cart which had broken its axle, and the passengers got injured. Since this was the first time Lele and Kato saw humans, they were amazed by their language and clothes. Lele decides to get a better look and jumps off her cart to see the injured girl. However, she is saved from a charging horse by the soldiers, and she wonders if humans are really bad or not. Somewhere, a group of bandits prepares to attack Koda village and take over the land for themselves, but gets unalive by a girl with a giant axe. After making them meet their maker, the girl introduces herself as Rory, one of the 12 apostles of the god of war. The remaining bandits try to flee, but Rory catches up to them before sending some boulders to knock them out. The next morning, Itami, along with the villagers, heads towards a safe place, one that is far away from the fire dragon's territory. On their way, they spot a bunch of crows and Rory, who is literally sitting in the middle of the road. Itami and his comrades are shocked to see a gothic loli sitting in the middle of the road. As she approaches them, the villagers get out and start praising her like a goddess. Itami finds it super strange as he has no idea how grown-ups can bow down to a child in some cat clothes. When she notices their strange vehicles, Rory gets excited and sits on Itami's lap, asking him to show how his tool works. Before the situation gets more awkward, Itami puts Rory on the other seat and continues their journey. As they were passing through rugged terrain, he spotted something up in the sky, which turned out to be the fire dragon. It has followed them and begins to attack the villagers. They try to stop the beast, but all their efforts are of no use due to the dragon's thick skin. As the battle gets more intense, just then, the elf girl wakes up and tells Itami to shoot at the dragon's eyes as it is its only weakness. Without wasting any time, they begin shooting its eyes, and with some help from Rory, they are able to fend off the dragon. With the dragon now gone, the people of the village finally bury their dead and continue their journey to a nearby village, while Rory, Lele, along with the elf girl and some children who lost their parents are left with Itami and his team. Soon, the word of humans driving off a fire dragon reaches nearby villagers and towns, and a group of knights takes keen interest in them. Meanwhile, Itami brings the refugees to the military complex at Ulnews Hills, and even though his senior didn't agree at first, later permitted him to take the refugees. The villagers have never seen such infrastructure and are amazed by the earthly food and human customs. Meanwhile, Itami and his team begin preparing tents for them. Later, one of his seniors tells Itami about the discovery of rare mineral deposits in the special region that could advance their technology, but it could also turn the whole world against Japan, and countries like the United States would be the first ones to attack them. Since Itami was the first human who made friendly contacts with the locals, soon he will be given complete freedom to interact with them. Meanwhile, in refugee camp, Lele encounters the elf girl, and the two begin introducing themselves. The elf, whose name is Tuka, is the surviving daughter of an elf king who saw her father and people dying in front of her eyes. Back in Japan, people began questioning the motives of the JSDF in the special region. Due to recent civilian deaths, many suspect JSDF's involvement despite being attacked by a fire dragon. After some time, the girls began to learn the human language, and without showing any plot armor, Lele learned about Japan, where Itami and his squad are from. Somewhere, a not-so-complete Lord Durin opens his eyes. Trust me, it also comes as a surprise for me. That tough prick somehow survived the Ulnews Hills battle. Later, when he was visited by Princess Pina and her knights, He tells her about the Emperor's betrayal and how he has doomed the people of Special Region due to his wicked acts. When asked about what happened at Olnews Hills, Lord Durin refused to speak anymore, so Pina, along with her knights, decides to go there by herself, but first they have to stop at a place called Italica. The next day, Itami's squad informs him about Tuca's strange behavior as she always looks lost and worried. Rory and Kanto try to break the ice and learn that Tuca is worried that one day the fire dragon might also attack Olnews Hills. Or worse, they have to sell themselves to the humans just to survive. They assure her that the humans are good guys and there won't be any need to sell themselves. After which, Rory, Tuca, and Lele go out and find corpses of flying dragons scattered all over the place that were killed in the Battle of Olnews Hills. Since humans are not interested in them, the girls begin taking off their scales as they can fetch a high price. To sell the scales, they have to go to a nearby town named Italica, but Tuca seems hesitant to go outside due to the fear of the fire dragon. However, Lele reassures her by stating that if the fire dragon shows up, then the humans will protect them like before. On their way to Italica, they see smoke from the town and stop to check it out. It turns out Italica was attacked by a group of bandits who are the remnants of the Allied forces, but for the time being, Princess Pina and her knights manage to safeguard the town. She knows that the bandits are preparing for a more powerful attack, and they have to defend the city for 3 days until her knight order reaches there to help them. As night falls, Pina remembers her childhood and the training she did with her friends, all of whom later became knights. After some time, Gray wakes up Pina, informing her about the arrival of the girls along with Itami at the gate. She eventually decides to let them enter, but as she hesitantly opens the door, Pina unintentionally knocks the shit out of Itami, who was standing right in front of the door. When he regains consciousness, Pina explains the current situation of the city to him. During their conversation, Itami learns that Pina is the daughter of the Emperor who sent the Force through the gate to conquer Earth. However, he, along with his squad, decides to stay and help Pina defend the city until her reinforcements arrive. Itami, along with Rory and a handful of soldiers, takes position at the south gate and after some time spots some bandits scouting just outside the city walls. They plan to lure the bandits through the south gate, and then the remaining soldiers, along with Pina and her knights, do a surprise attack. As night falls, the enemy starts shooting arrows from the east gate, where they were least expecting them. As the battle continues to intensify, the bandits eventually break into the castle, and Pina watches in disbelief as they start attacking the civilians. Meanwhile, Itami, who is waiting for Pina's order, watches the east gate being breached. Just then, Rory's condition worsens as the souls of fallen soldiers are being sent to the god of war through her body. If all of this continues, many innocent civilians will die, so Itami calls his seniors to send reinforcements as soon as they can. Rory, suffering from the battle and the souls of innocents, jumps off to stop the bandits, who is followed by Itami and his squad. She eventually arrives at the east gate and begins killing the bandits. By this time, Itami's reinforcements had also arrived and started destroying enemy posts from above. As the choppers use their full power to attack all the bandits at once from outside, Rory starts slaying the remaining bandits from inside. Just then, Itami and his squad also join her, and together they manage to kill the leader of the bandits. Pina, who has never seen such advanced weapons and technology, begins to think a chopper is a monster and accepts human superiority in war. After wiping out the bandits with no casualties, the choppers touch down and secure Italica. Since it was Itami and his men who saved the town, Pina realizes that the city is now under the control of human forces, and if they choose, they can turn her into a prisoner. So she starts to negotiate with humans and eventually signs a treaty along with a promise of treating the prisoners humanely. The human forces have no intention of occupying the city, and after taking some prisoners along with the spirit wielder who was helping the bandits, they left Italica under Pina's control. Meanwhile, the girls eventually sell the dragon skin to a merchant who was short on cash due to a recent war, so Lele asks for some info worth the money. Later, when the girls, along with Itami and his squad, were heading back to Olnews Hills, they encounter a group of female knights coming their way. They question their heading, and upon learning their destination, things quickly turn bad. The knights surround them and demand their surrender, but Itami tells his team to run away while he gets captured by one of the knights named Boses. When the knights bring half-dead Itami back to Italica, Pina gets furious at their actions since this signifies the violation of the treaty she signed earlier that day. Gray thinks this could result in humans starting a war with them and suggests Pina apologize on behalf of her knights. As night falls, Itami's squad returns outside Italica to save his ugly ass, and waits for the perfect opportunity to enter the city. They begin to worry for Itami, but a member of the squad tells them not to worry as Itami is a trained ranger, which comes as a surprise to others. After some time, the girls sneak into the city, and Tuka uses her magic to make the guards fall asleep. On the other side, Itami wakes up and finds himself surrounded by 4 non-human girls. He learns that he is back in Italica and Pina had punished the knight who captured and beat him. As he is treated like a king, a bunny girl with her exceptionally long ears hears someone trying to break into the mansion. Within seconds, Itami's squad enters the room and is shocked to see him well, but acting a bit strange. Meanwhile, Pina tells Bozes, who mistreated Itami, to offer her body to him as a sign of her repentance. She hesitantly agrees, and when she enters Itami's room, she is shocked to find his whole squad having fun. She takes this as an insult and beats Itami once again. When Pina learns about it, she is devastated, and to safeguard Italica, decides to go along with Itami to Olnews Hills and apologize to his seniors. The next day, when they prepare to leave, Itami radios his seniors about bringing Princess Pina and Bozes, which they allow. Upon arriving at the base, the girls meet with General Heizama and Lieutenant Yanagita. Lele, who is serving as the interpreter between the two, questions the reason for her knights attacking Itami. Pina asks for forgiveness for the inappropriate behavior of her forces, and since she is already terrified, the group moves on. After some time, Itami asks Tuka to be a representative of the delegation going to the other side of the gate tomorrow. He assures her that everything will be fine, and after learning that Rory and Lele are also going along with them, Tuka agrees. The next day, when they are about to leave, Itami learns that his seniors have arranged a private meeting for Pina and her knight, who are also joining them secretly on this trip. The gate finally opens, and everyone takes a deep breath and prepares themselves for the land that lies beyond the gate. Once they enter Japan, the girls are astonished by the chilled climate and high-rise buildings the likes of which they have never seen before. As Itami checks in, he meets a strange man named Kamakado assigned to escort him and the girls. The guy has surely done his homework and knows all about Itami. They eventually arrive outside the Japanese Senate, but Pina and her knight are sent to a secret meeting hidden from the news. Everywhere around the world, people wait for this moment, and other countries are keeping a close eye on this matter. The Senate begins with the opposition questioning of otherworldly civilian casualties by a dragon, and tries to hold JSDF and the current government responsible for the account. However, Itami refuses the allegations and tells the Senate that the only reason those civilians died was because they lacked sufficient firepower. To prove his point, he puts forth a report of the analysis of the dragon scale that turns out to be as strong as tungsten and could exhale high temperatures. Next was Lele, and she tells everyone how well JSDF treated her and provided her with everything she required. Rory also defends JSDF and tells everyone how they fought the fire dragon and safeguarded the civilians in the Battle of Italica. On the other side, another group of delegation talks to Pina about the release of 6,000 prisoners which Japan had captured in the Battle of Olnews Hills. A man hands her a book containing the names of all the prisoners and is willing to release a small portion of them right away only to get some favors in return. Since most of the prisoners are high-ranking nobles, Pina realizes that the humans want to gain their favor back in the special region. The delegation ends with both parties shaking hands and coming to terms to resolve their differences. To avoid any more attention from news crews, they went to Tokyo through a subway, but due to an accident between Ginza and Tokyo subway, they had to change their plans. It turns out someone was trying to kill Itami and the girls. With 2 failed attempts which almost killed Kamakado, Itami had no other choice but to take the girls to his ex-wife's apartment. This comes as a surprise since no one thought that a loser like Itami could have a wife. He introduces his ex-wife Risa to everyone, and the girls are amazed to see her collection of books. They become curious to know more about Japan's culture and art. Since they narrowly escaped 2 attempts, Itami and his squad suspect that someone was leaking their information to the attackers, so the best option is to stay underground. The next day, the girls, along with Risa, went out shopping and got some new dresses. Even Rory, a priestess, couldn't stay away from the dresses of this world and tried them on. Meanwhile, Itami meets with the defense minister and informs him of the current situation. After listening to him, he orders Itami to follow the original plan and take the girls to the inn guarded by the SFG. After some time, when they arrived at the inn and the girls were changing their clothes, Rory felt someone watching them. It turns out the defense minister and the SFG are keeping an eye on them. As the girls are busy in the hot spring, the SFG surrounds the area and quickly takes out the enemies sent to kill the girls. Just then, the Japanese Prime Minister gets a call from the USA, blackmailing him about a possible leak of the corruption of one of his cabinet ministers. The defense minister of USA threatens the prime minister in exchange for the girl's visit to his country, or else they will leak the documents. He later calls the defense minister, telling him to stop protecting the girls. Later that night, Itami wakes up and finds the girls sleeping, except Rory, who senses someone fighting at a distance. She tells Itami to let her go and kill the enemies or develop a plot with her to calm her instincts. It turns out the USA Marines were fighting with Japan's SGFs in the forest. After taking heavy losses, the Marines decide to pull back but receive the message that the deal with Japan went well and now they can pursue the original plan. Back in the inn, as Rory began developing a plot with Itami, and before she would grab him into paying child support, Itami got a message from the Senate. Just then, the two parties met outside the inn and were shocked to see Rory, who was prepared for their arrival. Amidst this chaos, the Marines ran into operatives of another country. The scene soon turned into a bloodbath as Rory started killing everyone with her giant axe. Her speed and strength were unmatched, and within seconds, she easily took out both parties. Back at headquarters, even the defense minister was shocked to see Rory's exceptional abilities. Since the inn is not safe anymore, Itami and the girls prepared to leave. They stole a car from one of the enemies waiting outside, and after Lele neutralized the man with her magic, they headed somewhere safe. Pina, who came to Japan to negotiate, began to wonder if Japan's government had sold her, but Itami reassured her that the government would never do such a thing. To avoid enemy attacks, Risa began posting news regarding the girl's scheduled visit to the Ginza Memorial the next day. However, the next day, Japan's prime minister announced his sudden resignation, which came as a surprise. Meanwhile, people began to gather outside the Ginza Memorial, and a few of Japan's secret agents working for the CIA also took their positions. They planned to stop Itami and the girls from entering the memorial by creating panic and cutting the TV connections before abducting the girls. Soon after, Itami and the girls arrive outside the Ginza Memorial, which is surrounded by thousands of spectators gathered to see an elf and a gothic demi-goddess. As they begin to walk towards the memorial hall, Kamikado also arrives there. It turns out all this time he was investigating these double agents hidden amongst the Japanese agency, and finally got a hold of them. All the CIA agents got busted, which comes as a surprise for the USA. After paying their respects to the dead of the attack, the girls, along with Itami and his squad, return to the special region. Pina is overwhelmed by this experience, and after witnessing what lies beyond the gate, she is certain that the Empire stood no chance against the human world. She, along with Boses, decides to leave for the capital at dawn to convince the Emperor for peace talks with the humans. After the Battle of Italica, different people and cultures began to gather at Olnews, and slowly the hills transformed into a bustling town. Meanwhile, Pina, along with Kuji, an envoy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, visits the capital for peace talks. She is extremely worried about her people's future and knows that its survival rests on making peace with Japan. She looks at the list of prisoners whose return the Empire is requesting. After some time, the meeting begins, and Pina introduces Cicero from the Mardos clan, which has been one of the Empire's most loyal families throughout its history. Since after the Battle of Olnews Hills, the Empire's forces are regrouping, and if anyone who can speak against the war in the Senate is Cicero. According to Pina, the Senate is now split into two groups. One wants to continue this hopeless war, while the other wants to limit the Emperor's power and have peace with the humans. Later, in a secret meeting, Kuji presents some gifts which he brought from Japan, leaving Cicero speechless as he has never seen such craftsmanship. However, upon realizing that Kuji is from beyond the gate, Cicero loses his temper, warning Pina for bringing an enemy to his castle, and telling Kuji to face the consequences. However, Kuji simply hands Cicero the name of his nephew, who he thought died in the Battle of Olnews Hills, but in reality is imprisoned in Japan. Kuji promises to release him only in exchange for Cicero staying out of Pina's way, and letting her do the negotiations, to which he agrees. On the other side, Itami is happy to see Olnews Hills progressing. The things they brought back from Japan are highly valuable among the nobles, but the sudden increase in the size of the town means that they are short of people. Plus, some of the bars and restaurants serve alcohol, causing the young members of JSDF to become regular customers and get high. Later, Itami, along with his squad, meets Rory at a restaurant to talk about Tuka, who ever since returning is constantly searching for her dead father. They think it's time for her to accept reality and move on, but nobody is sure how to confront her and what the consequences will be. Their meeting ends as the members of JSDF leave to prepare for the next day, with only Itami and Rory left behind at the tavern. As Rory once again tries to develop a plot with Itami, suddenly a mysterious person steps in and confronts her. The mysterious person turns out to be a dark elf, and Rory is pissed off due to her evening plans getting ruined by some stranger. Angrily, she kicks Itami, and before things get out of hand, the dark elf introduces herself as Yao Ha, the daughter of Dihan of the Dushi clan. She mistakenly took Itami as a pervert and asks if he's trying to intoxicate a little girl. Rory starts playing along with it and hides behind Yao Ha, telling her that the man is indeed trying to force her to drink alcohol. This angers Yao Ha, and she draws her sword, pointing towards Itami while he begins to question his sanity. However, before Yao Ha completely overpowers and demolishes him, Itami runs out of there, and so does Rory. Furious that she got tricked into some bullshit, Yao Ha sits in the tavern and explains to the bunny bartender her reason for visiting Olnews Hills. She puts up a rare diamond called adamantite, and is ready to give it to anyone who could slay an injured fire dragon. With no luck and no one accepting an impossible task like that, she gets back into the forest. As she falls asleep, Yao Ha remembers the destruction the fire dragon caused to her people. A few months ago, the same fire dragon attacked the Dark Elves' village, killing hundreds of its inhabitants. With no options left and to protect the surviving elves, Yao Ha sets out on a journey to find the human army and seek their help. The next day, she wakes up to the sound of jets flying above her and feels a sense of relief knowing that her people will be safe. She arrives at the base camp and explains her situation to the guards standing at the entrance, but quickly realizes that none of them can speak more than a few words. After getting harassed and encountering thugs, Yao Ha feels devastated and exhausted. Eventually, she comes across a shop and sees a seller talking to humans in their language. She jumps on the desk, asking for help, and the seller gives her a book to learn Japanese so that she can communicate with the men in uniform. Meanwhile, Lele is practicing her magic spells based on a chemistry book she brought back from Japan. Even though she is able to cast a powerful spell that leaves Kota speechless, Lele thinks there is so much more that she can achieve by reading the chemistry book. Just then, one of the JSDF members asks her for help to interpret someone for them. Lele then returns to the base and learns that Yao Ha has been brought in on suspicion of mugging. After talking to her, Lele learns about her clan being attacked by a fire dragon and the false report filed against her. Thankfully, the spirit wielder was able to make one of the thugs confess his attempt to assault Yao Ha, thus clearing her of charges. Lele then takes her to General Heizama, where she explains the situation and asks them to help Yao Ha. Sadly, her village lies beyond the borders of the empire, and sending his men beyond the borders will mean an all-out war with another kingdom, so he refuses to help her. This leaves Yao Ha devastated, as getting human help was her last effort to save her people. Meanwhile, Itami was busy delivering gifts in secret but got discovered by Pina and her knights, and they both reaffirm their collective goal of peace between the Empire and Japan. On the other side, Yao Ha hangs out with Lele, getting angry that she has been rejected and is ready to cry, wishing she could have done something to convince the humans. Lele tells her that the humans also have their own problems, and she should accept her people's fate. As she walks back alone, angry at Lele, a bunch of guys from JSDF who overheard her crying decide to help Yao Ha without caring about any repercussions. They plan to send a small unit with enough ammunition to deal with the fire dragon and save Yao Ha's people. Meanwhile, Yao Ha encounters Rory, who takes her to Tuka to arrange a room for her. Unfortunately, this is where Season 1 ends. Give me 2K likes if you want the rest of the story.